I lost everything before I lost my dignity. The business I built with my own hands over 35 years collapsed in less than 6 months. One wrong partnership. One trusted signature. And suddenly, everything I had worked for was gone. I didn't cry when the bank sealed my office. I didn't beg when the lawyer stopped answering my calls. I just sat there in the empty building, listening to the echo of my own footsteps, realizing something far worse than bankruptcy had happened. I was alone. My name is Robert Miller. I'm 62 years old. Before you judge me, before you think this is just another story about a failed man, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Comment the city or country you're watching from. And tell me, have you ever been betrayed by someone you raised with your own hands? Because what happened next broke something inside me that never fully healed. I didn't want to go to my son. That's the truth. A father should be a shelter, not a burden. And I had already lost too much to lose my self-respect. But when you run out of money, pride is the first thing you pawn. I sat in my old sedan outside his apartment building for nearly an hour. The engine was off. The night was cold. And my thoughts were louder than the traffic. This was the boy I once held in my arms at the hospital. The boy who fell asleep on my chest during long road trips. The boy I worked overtime for, so he wouldn't have to. I told myself it was temporary. Just a few nights. A couch. A corner. That's all I needed. I picked up my suitcase from the back seat. It was old. The handle cracked. Just like my confidence. I walked up the stairs slowly. Each step felt like I was climbing toward judgment. I rang the doorbell. Once. No answer. Twice. I could hear laughter inside. The television. Comfort. The door finally opened. Halfway. It wasn't my son. It was his wife. She didn't smile. She didn't greet me. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. My worn jacket. My tired face. The suitcase. Her expression changed instantly. Yes? She asked. Her tone was sharp. Cold. I tried to smile. Hello? I'm here to see my son. She folded her arms. He's not home. I nodded. I know. I just thought, maybe I could wait inside. Things are a little difficult right now. There was a long pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. This isn't a shelter. I didn't understand at first. I'm not asking for much, I replied quietly. Just a few days. Her hand tightened on the door. You should have planned better, she said. And then, she slammed the door. Right in my face. The sound echoed down the hallway like a gunshot. Click. The lock turned. In that moment, I wasn't a father anymore. I was a mistake. I stood there for several seconds, staring at the door like it might open again. Like this was all a misunderstanding. It didn't. I didn't knock again. I couldn't. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight. I turned around and walked down the stairs slowly, dragging my suitcase behind me. Every step felt heavier than the last. Outside, life continued like nothing had happened. Cars passed. People laughed. Lights glowed in warm windows. I sat in my car that night, curled up in the back seat like a child. My knees pressed to my chest. My back screaming in pain. At 2 a.m, my phone vibrated. A message. From my son. Dad, sorry about earlier. Things are complicated. We'll talk later. Later. That word hurt more than the slammed door. Later means not now. Later means not important. Later means I'll forget. Days turned into weeks. I stopped calling. No one noticed. Friends who once needed my advice suddenly didn't have time. Relatives avoided eye contact at family events. Failure makes people uncomfortable. I ended up at a small shelter on the edge of town. Metal beds. Fluorescent lights. Cold food. But the coldest thing wasn't the place. It was the looks. Like everyone there had already been erased. One night, lying awake, Staring at the ceiling, I realized something terrifying. My son hadn't even asked where I was staying. Not once. That hurt more than losing my business. Because money can be rebuilt. Trust cannot. A month later, I saw him again. By accident. At a grocery store. He was arguing with the cashier. His card had been declined. People in line were watching. I stood behind him quietly. Older. Thinner. Stronger in ways he couldn't see. He turned around. "Dad?" His face went pale. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he looked embarrassed. Like I didn't belong in his world anymore. I smiled calmly and said, "Don't worry. I won't ask for anything." And I walked away. That was the night something inside me changed. Not into anger. Into resolve. Because when you're pushed out of your own blood's life, you either disappear, or you rise quietly. I didn't feel angry that night. That surprised me. I thought anger would come first, shouting, blaming, regret. But what came instead was something colder. Acceptance. I accepted that I had become invisible to my own family. The shelter lights flicked on at 6 every morning. Harsh. Unforgiving. No gentle wake-ups. No coffee smell drifting from a kitchen. Just noise, coughing, and the sound of men pretending not to look at one another. I sat on my metal bed, tying my shoes slowly, listening to the life stories around me. A former truck driver who lost his license after one mistake. A veteran who came home to an empty house and an even emptier heart. Men who once mattered, until they didn't. That's when I learned something important. Society doesn't punish failure. It erases it. During the day, I walked. Miles and miles. I walked to keep my thoughts from eating me alive. Past neighborhoods where families ate dinner together. Past parks where fathers played with their kids. I watched those fathers closely. I wondered if they knew how fragile their place was. How quickly love could turn into inconvenience. One afternoon, I stopped at a public library. It was warm. Quiet. Safe. I hadn't been inside a library in years. I sat at a computer and checked my email for the first time in weeks. There were messages I didn't expect. Old business contacts. People who had heard rumors that I was out. One message stood out. "Robert, I heard you stepped away. If you're ever interested in consulting, let me know. Discretion guaranteed." I stared at the screen. Consulting. They didn't want my company. They wanted my mind. For the first time in months, I felt useful again. I replied with one sentence. "Let's talk." The first meeting was quiet. No contracts. No handshakes. Just coffee in a corner booth. They didn't ask where I lived. They didn't ask what went wrong. They only asked questions. And I answered. Carefully. Precisely. I realized something frightening that day. I had more value broken than my son had stable. Weeks passed. Consulting turned into steady income. Steady income turned into savings. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. I kept my head down. I moved out of the shelter into a small rented room. A bed. A desk. A lock on the door. That lock meant more to me than any house I'd ever owned. I didn't tell my son. I didn't call. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. If he wanted to know how I was doing, he would ask. One evening, my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I let it ring. Not to punish him, but to test myself. When it stopped, I felt calm. No shaking. No racing heart. Just calm. An hour later, a text came in. "Dad, we should talk. Things are not going well." I read it twice. Then once more. I didn't respond. Not yet. A few days later, I learned the truth from someone else. My son's job had downsized. His income was cut almost in half. Bills were piling up. Arguments at home were getting louder. And suddenly, I was remembered. Isn't it funny how memory works when money disappears? I agreed to meet him. Public place. Neutral ground. A small cafe near the train station. He arrived late. He looked tired. Older than I remembered. He smiled awkwardly. "Dad, thanks for coming." I nodded and sat. He started talking immediately. About stress. About pressure. About misunderstandings. Not once did he say sorry. Not once did he mention the door. Finally, he looked at me and said, "We were thinking, maybe you could help us for a while." Help us. Not stay with us. Not come home. Help. I stirred my coffee slowly. "Help how?" I asked. He hesitated. "You know, financially. Just until things improve." There it was. The truth he couldn't dress up. I looked at him quietly. Then I said something that made his face drop. "I don't live in my car anymore." He blinked. "What?" "I'm doing fine," I continued calmly. "Better than fine." He didn't know what to say. For the first time in his life, I had information he didn't control. He leaned forward. "Dad, you know my wife didn't mean." I raised my hand. "No," I said gently. "She meant exactly what she did." Silence stretched between us. People laughed at nearby tables. Life went on. I looked at my son and finally spoke the words that had been waiting for months. "You didn't lose me when your business suffered," I said. "You lost me when you didn't open the door." His eyes filled with something like regret. But regret is cheap. Action is expensive. I stood up. "I hope things get better for you," I said. Then I added, "Plan better." The same words his wife had used on me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I just walked away. And I knew. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was balance. That night, alone in my room, I sat at my desk and opened a folder. Inside were documents. Ideas. Plans. People thought I was rebuilding. They were wrong. I was redesigning my life. Without people who saw me as disposable. And somewhere deep inside I knew. The hardest lesson for my son was still coming. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was angry. Because for the first time in years, my mind was clear. When you lose everything, noise disappears. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining yourself. And that silence becomes dangerous. I woke up before sunrise, made a simple cup of coffee, and sat by the window of my small rented room. The city looked different from up there. Not hopeful. Honest. I thought about my son. Not as the man he had become, but as the boy he once was. The boy who cried when he lost his first baseball game. The boy who ran to me when the world scared him. Somewhere along the way, he learned something I never taught him. That comfort matters more than character. Work kept me busy. The consulting jobs multiplied quietly. No announcements. No headlines. Just results. I helped companies avoid mistakes I had already paid for with my own life. They listened because I didn't speak loudly. I spoke precisely. Money came in steadily. Not millions. But enough. Enough to choose. Enough to say no. That's real power. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call. From my daughter-in-law's father. We hadn't spoken much over the years. Polite holidays. Surface smiles. "Robert," he said, clearing his throat. "I hear you're doing better." I smiled to myself. Word travels fast when people need something. "Yes," I replied. "I am." There was a pause. Then he said, "My daughter and your son are under pressure. I thought maybe you could help smooth things over." Smooth things over. Another version of forget what happened. I didn't respond right away. "Did she ever ask how I survived after she shut the door?" I asked calmly. Silence. "No," he admitted. "Then there's nothing to smooth," I said. I ended the call. And felt lighter than I had in months. A week later, my son showed up at my door. Unannounced. I opened it slowly. He stood there holding a paper bag. Food. A peace offering too late to matter. I just wanted to check on you, he said. I stepped aside and let him in. Not because I needed him. Because I wanted him to see. The clean room. The desk. The books. The quiet order of a man who had rebuilt himself without asking permission. He looked around, confused. You're okay, he said. Yes, I replied. I am. He sat down awkwardly. I should have been there, he said quietly. That sentence came months too late. I didn't interrupt. He continued. Things at home aren't good. She's stressed. I'm stressed. We didn't mean to. I stopped him. Listen to me, I said, calm but firm. When a man loses his footing, he doesn't need excuses. He needs a place to stand. He lowered his eyes. I continued. I didn't ask for luxury. I asked for a door to open. His shoulders slumped. I know, he whispered. Then he said something that surprised me. She's pregnant. The word hung in the air. A grandchild. A new beginning. I felt it. That old instinct to protect. To forgive. But wisdom held me back. I nodded slowly. That's good news, I said. He looked hopeful. I was thinking, maybe now we can. No, I said gently. That one word hit harder than shouting ever could. I will be part of that child's life, I continued. But I won't step back into a house where respect only exists when things go wrong. He looked stunned. This isn't punishment, I added. This is boundaries. He left quietly. No argument. That's when I knew he finally understood something. Days later, the truth surfaced fully. Their finances were worse than I'd imagined. Loans. Credit cards. Desperation. And then came the moment I never planned. But didn't avoid. My daughter-in-law called me. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Robert, she said. Can we talk? I met her at the same cafe where I had met my son weeks earlier. She arrived early. Nervous. She didn't look powerful anymore. She didn't look certain. She looked afraid. I owe you an apology, she said quickly. I waited. For how I treated you, she continued. I was overwhelmed. I panicked. I didn't think. I raised my hand gently. You thought, I said. You chose. Her eyes filled with tears. We need help, she whispered. There it was. Not remorse. Need. I leaned back. Let me tell you something, I said calmly. When you shut that door, you didn't just shut it on me. You shut it on the man who might have helped you one day. She stared at me. I'm not here to take revenge, I continued. I'm here to be honest. She nodded slowly. I will help my grandchild, I said. I will not rescue your lifestyle. Her face fell. I won't move in. I won't fund your choices. And I won't be spoken down to again. She swallowed hard. I understand, she said. I stood up. One more thing, I added. If you ever slam a door on someone in need again, remember how this feels. I walked away. And for the first time, she stayed seated. That night, alone again, I thought about how strange life is. People think revenge means destruction. It doesn't. True revenge is growth so complete that the people who hurt you can no longer reach you. I didn't take anything from them. I took myself back. But the story wasn't over. Because a few weeks later, everything changed. A legal letter arrived in my mailbox. One that forced my son to face consequences he never imagined. And forced me to make a choice. That would define the rest of our lives. The envelope was thick. Too thick to be good news. I noticed it the moment I unlocked my mailbox that morning. Cream-colored paper. A return address from a law firm I recognized instantly. My old law firm. The same firm that had represented my company for over a decade. before they quietly stepped away when things started collapsing. I carried the envelope upstairs slowly, set it on my desk, stared at it longer than I should have. When you've lived long enough, your body learns fear before your mind does. I opened it. The words blurred at first, then sharpened. A formal notice. A pending civil claim. My son's name. And mine. They were being sued. Not by strangers. By former partners of mine. Partners who had transferred liability into a new company. A company my son had unknowingly signed documents for. Documents that carried my old name, my reputation, my past. My son hadn't read the fine print. He trusted someone. Just like I once did. And now, everything they owed. They were trying to attach to me. I felt my jaw tighten. Not anger. Recognition. History was repeating itself. Only this time, I wasn't blind. I called the number on the letter. The lawyer sounded surprised to hear my voice. "Robert, we assumed you'd be difficult to reach." "No," I said calmly. "I'm very reachable now." "Explain." He did. Slowly. Carefully. My son had tried to save money by forming a small side venture using connections tied to my old company. A few signatures. A few guarantees. Nothing illegal. Just careless. And now, when things had gone wrong, the partners wanted someone solid to blame. Someone older. Someone established. Someone like me. When I hung up, I sat in silence. I could stop this. I had the knowledge. The leverage. The experience. I could call favors. Restructure debt. Make the problem disappear. All it would take was one thing. Stepping back into the role of savior. The role that had cost me everything before. That evening my son called. He sounded panicked. "Dad, did you get something in the mail?" "Yes," I replied. There was a pause. Then his voice broke. "They're saying we could lose everything. The apartment. The savings. Even future income." I listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't reassure. Finally, he said the words I knew were coming. "They said you're the only one who can fix this." There it was. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I was wrong." "You're useful again." "I need time," I said. "Dad." I said I need time. I repeated. I ended the call. And for the first time since this began, I felt the weight of a decision that wasn't emotional, but moral. That night, I went for a long walk. Past the same neighborhoods I used to wander through when I had nothing. Past the same warm windows. The same laughter. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I had power again. The dangerous kind. The kind that tests who you really are. The next day, I met my lawyer. Not the old firm. A new one. Younger. Sharper. They reviewed everything. After 2 hours, the lead attorney leaned back and said, "You're not legally responsible. But your name gives them confidence. If you step in, you legitimize their claim." I nodded. "And if I don't?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Your son will have to face consequences." I went home and sat at my desk. I thought about my father. A hard man. A fair one. He once told me, "Help should lift someone up, not teach them they can fall forever." I realized something then. Saving my son again wouldn't save him. It would confirm everything he'd learned. That door's only open when you knock with panic. I asked my lawyer to draft a response. Clear. Firm. I would cooperate with the court. But I would not absorb responsibility. The document was sent. The line was drawn. When my son found out, he came to me. Not to the cafe. Not to call. To my door. Again. This time, his wife was with him. She looked different. Smaller. Quieter. They sat across from me like students awaiting judgment. "You're really going to let this happen?" my son asked. I looked at him. "I'm going to let you handle your life," I replied. Her eyes filled with tears. "We're family," she said. I leaned forward slightly. Family doesn't slam doors, I said quietly. Family doesn't remember someone only when the floor collapses. Silence. Heavy. I raised you to stand, I continued, looking at my son. Not to hide behind me. His hands shook. I'm scared, he admitted. I nodded. Good, I said. That fear will teach you what comfort never did. They left without another word. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt alignment. Weeks passed. Court dates loomed. Negotiations dragged on. And something unexpected happened. My son began fighting his own battles. He read every document. Asked questions. Learned. Not because I saved him, but because I didn't. Then one morning, I received another letter. This one thinner. Shorter. A settlement notice. They had backed down. Not because of me. Because my son had pushed back. Hard. Correctly. Legally. On his own. He called me that night. His voice was different. Steadier. We handled it, he said. I closed my eyes. I know, I replied. There was a pause. Then he said something I'd waited a year to hear. I'm sorry for the door. He didn't say but. He didn't justify. He just said it. I forgive you, I said. And I meant it. Not because he needed it, but because I no longer carried the weight. But forgiveness didn't mean reversal. It meant evolution. And what came next would change our family forever. Because my final decision was still ahead. The apology didn't fix everything, but it changed the temperature of the room. When my son said he was sorry, for the door, for the silence, for the cowardice, I didn't rush to respond. I let the words sit between us. Apologies aren't powerful because they're spoken. They're powerful because they're owned. We met again a week later, just the two of us. No cafe this time. A quiet park near the river. I chose that place on purpose. Because rivers don't argue with where they've been. They just keep moving. My son looked different. Not confident. Not broken. Aware. That's rarer. I don't expect things to go back, he said carefully. I just didn't want to end my life knowing I never said it. I nodded. That's a good instinct, I replied. Hold on to it. We walked for a while in silence. Then he asked the question I knew was coming. So, where do we go from here? I stopped, looked at him, and spoke slowly. We go forward, I said. But not the way you think. I told him my terms. Not demands. Not threats. Boundaries. I won't live with you, I said. I won't fund your household. And I won't rescue decisions you haven't finished making. He swallowed. But, I continued, I will be present. He looked up. I'll be a grandfather, I said. I'll show up for birthdays. I'll answer calls that are about people, not money. He nodded slowly. And your wife? He asked. I didn't hesitate. She and I will be civil, I said. But respect doesn't reset overnight. It's rebuilt, or it isn't. He accepted that. That's how I knew he'd grown. A month later, my grandchild was born. A boy. When I held him for the first time, something ancient stirred inside me. Not fear. Not pride. Responsibility. Not the kind that demands sacrifice. The kind that demands example. I looked at that tiny face and made a promise, not out loud, but deep inside. He would never see me beg to belong. He would never see me shrink for comfort. He would know that love doesn't erase self-respect. Life settled into a rhythm. Not the one I had planned years ago. A better one. My consulting work expanded quietly. I became selective. I turned down more offers than I accepted. Time became my currency. I rented a small house near the edge of town. Nothing impressive. But it was mine. Every door opened because I chose it. One evening, my daughter-in-law asked if she could speak with me alone. I considered saying no. Then I said yes. She didn't apologize again. She didn't cry. Instead, she said something unexpected. I didn't understand what it meant to be dependent, until I was. I listened. She continued. I grew up believing safety meant control. And when I felt that slipping, I lashed out. She paused. I won't defend what I did. That mattered. I just wanted you to know. I'm trying to be different. I nodded. That's all anyone can do, I said. We didn't hug. We didn't reconcile dramatically. But something honest replaced something false. And that's stronger. On my 63rd birthday, my son surprised me. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a simple card. No money. No grand gesture. Just a sentence written in his handwriting. You taught me more by walking away than you ever could by staying. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. That card mattered more than any apology. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not forcing my way into that apartment. If I regret not knocking again. If I regret not begging. The answer is no. Because that door taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn. That dignity isn't something others give you. It's something you stop handing away. I still think about that night. The hallway. The silence. The click of the lock. But it no longer hurts. It reminds me. It reminds me that losing everything stripped me down to what couldn't be taken. My judgment. My patience. My spine. If you're listening to this and you've ever been turned away by your own blood, if you've ever been made to feel like a burden when you were simply human, hear me clearly. You don't need revenge. You don't need permission. You don't even need closure from them. You need alignment with yourself. The rest follows. I didn't win by making them suffer. I won by refusing to disappear. And that is the kind of ending no one can slam a door on.